When Breaking Bad first aired, no one probably expected that a quiet chemistry teacher from New Mexico would become one of the most unforgettable characters in television history. Walter White begins as a man everyone can relate to. Underpaid, unappreciated, and quietly drowning in a life that never turned out the way he hoped. He's brilliant, but invisible. He's hardworking, but stuck. And when he learns he's dying of lung cancer, the world suddenly feels like a cruel joke. That's when his story takes a turn, not into redemption, but into transformation. The man who once taught chemical reactions becomes one himself. He changes, molecule by molecule, into something darker. In this video, we'll be exploring how pride and ego transform Walter White, from a struggling teacher into a man consumed by power. We'll break down how his choices, his lies, and his need for control reveal the dangerous side of human ambition. This is a story about how the desire to be respected can destroy everything you love. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe if you enjoy deep dives into character psychology and storytelling. It helps the channel grow and ensures you don't miss future breakdowns like this one. Now, let's get into it. At the start, Walter's motivation seems noble, even tragic. He's a man cornered by circumstance, a gifted chemist who once helped build a billion-dollar company, but now spends his days teaching uninterested high schoolers about basic reactions. His paycheck can barely cover his family's needs. And to make things worse, he's forced to scrub cars after class for a boss who humiliates him in front of customers. The moment he receives his lung cancer diagnosis, everything collapses. He faces a life cut short, a pile of medical bills he can't pay, and the crushing realization that he'll leave his family with nothing. Cooking meth when first proposed feels like the last desperate act of a dying man, trying to reclaim some control before time runs out. That's where Jesse Pinkman comes in. Once one of Walter's worst students, Jesse has stumbled into the drug trade without much skill or direction. When Walter catches him fleeing a police raid, he doesn't turn him in. Instead, he recruits him. Together, they form an unlikely partnership. The teacher brings chemistry, the student brings street connections. It's a business arrangement that seems temporary, a way for Walter to quietly make enough money to secure his family's future. He even tells himself that this is a victimless crime, that no one will get hurt as long as he stays careful and smart. But it doesn't stay that simple for long. Walter's first cook changes everything. Standing in the desert, watching blue smoke rise from the RV, he experiences something he hasn't felt in years: excitement. The meth he creates isn't ordinary. It's flawless, chemically pure, and unlike anything on the market. So to him, that signature blue crystal became his proof of his brilliance. Every gram that circulates through the streets tells the world that Walter White, the man everyone ignored, is capable of something extraordinary. But with every batch he cooks, a little more of the old Walter disappears. The fear of death is replaced by the thrill of power and control. He begins to walk differently, speak differently, and look at others with a quiet sense of superiority. It's easy to sympathize with him at first. After all, who hasn't felt undervalued or underestimated? Walter's early actions even seem understandable. He hides his crimes under the mask of love, convincing himself that every risk he takes is for his family's future. But underneath the fear and guilt, there's satisfaction. He likes being powerful. He likes being feared. And that's where his transformation begins. Not in a moment of violence, but in a quiet realization that he enjoys being the one in control. He adopts the name Heisenberg, realizing that in order to survive in this world, he needs to become someone else. Someone stronger, sharper, and impossible to ignore. At that point, Walter has created a new identity. He is no longer the man who mumbled through classrooms and car washes. He's the man who knocks. He stands taller, speaks with authority, and no longer apologizes for who he is. But what he can't see is that Heisenberg is just his ego given form, a monster born out of pride and long-suppressed resentment. The rest of his journey is a slow unraveling, a tragic study of what happens when power replaces purpose, and pride becomes the only thing left to protect. As the money piles up, so does the arrogance. Walter's pride grows faster than his empire. When Jesse tries to reason with him or suggest restraint, Walter treats him like a child. He stops listening. Every challenge becomes a personal insult. Every disagreement, a declaration of war. Even the smallest victories inflate his ego. When Gus Fring first offers him a job in a professional lab, Walter accepts not because it's safer, but because it validates his genius. The gleaming equipment, the meticulous process, everything feeds the illusion that he is not a criminal, but a master craftsman. His obsession with perfection drives him to take bigger risks. The purity of his product becomes an extension of his self-worth. When imitators begin selling inferior blue meth, his anger isn't actually about lost profit. It's about reputation. He wants the world to know that there is only one Heisenberg. That need to be recognized turns him reckless. At home, the same pride that built his empire begins to poison his marriage. Skylar's questions feel like attacks, her worry like betrayal. And when she finally discovers the truth, Walter doesn't even apologize. Instead, he insists that everything he's done is for the family. The more Skylar resists, the more defiant he becomes. Pride turns every confrontation into proof that he's right, and everyone else is too blind to see his brilliance. The most dangerous part of Walter's transformation is how convincing he is, not only to others, but to himself. He believes every rationalization, every speech about duty and love. He begins to sound almost noble when he talks about providing for his family, yet his actions show the opposite. Power doesn't just corrupt Walter, it consumes him. The chemistry that once symbolized creation has become his weapon. He uses knowledge like a sword, always reminding others how much smarter he is. Yet for all his intellect, he never sees that he's slowly isolating himself. His pride keeps him from trusting anyone, especially Jesse, who begins to see through the lies. By pushing away the one person who still believes in him, Walter ensures his eventual loneliness. His pride wraps around every part of his life until even his moments of triumph feel hollow. The man who once claimed to be doing the right thing is now guided by the need to prove he was right all along. And so, in chasing power, Walter loses purpose. The teacher, the husband, the father, those identities fade, leaving only Heisenberg standing in their place, cold and untouchable. The problem with Walter White is that he mistakes love for loyalty and fear for respect. He believes his family will one day thank him, that Jesse will see his manipulation as mentorship, and that the empire he built will be remembered as proof of brilliance. But what's really left behind are broken people and buried truths. In trying to be the provider, Walter became the destroyer. His family lives in constant fear. Jesse is traumatized by betrayal, and Walter still can't understand how everything fell apart. In his mind, he's the victim of circumstance, not the author of chaos. Yet, as each lie unravels, it becomes clear that Walter White's greatest enemy was never the law, the cartel, or the cancer. It was his pride. And that pride eventually becomes his downfall. When Gus Fring enters his life, Walter finally meets someone who mirrors his intelligence, but not his ego. Gus is composed, calculating, and disciplined, everything Walter refuses to be. Their partnership could have made him rich and safe, but instead it becomes a battle for dominance. Walter can't tolerate sharing power. The quiet tension between them grows until it becomes war. Even as the danger escalates, Walter convinces himself that he's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. In truth, he's blinded by pride. He mistakes recklessness for courage and manipulation for strategy. His ego doesn't stop with Gus. Mike Ehrmantraut a man of principle who values order and restraint, becomes another enemy simply because he doesn't worship Heisenberg. Every time Mike gives him advice, Walter treats it as an insult. He can't accept that someone might know better. The final confrontation between them is one of the most telling moments in Walter's story. After an argument turns heated, Mike calls him out for what he truly is, a ticking time bomb. Walter kills him in anger, moments after Mike says what no one else dares to, that every disaster Walter has created comes from his own pride. The argument begins over a list of names. 11 former associates connected to Gus Fring's operation who could testify and expose them all. Mike refuses to give Walter the list, telling him the problem could have been avoided if he had simply listened. But Walter, consumed by paranoia and the need for control, can't stand being dismissed. When Mike tries to walk away, Walter shoots him through the car window in a fit of rage. It's only after Mike collapses by the river that Walter realizes the names weren't even necessary. Lydia Rodart Quayle, a business associate involved in their distribution network, could have easily provided them. That's when he mutters, almost casually, "I could have gotten the names from Lydia." But make no mistake, there was no shock, no guilt, just frustration at his own miscalculation. The man who once agonized over killing has become so detached that murder feels like an inconvenience, a momentary error in an otherwise perfect plan. In that moment, the last trace of his humanity flickers out, replaced entirely by Heisenberg's cold precision. Now, what makes Walter's eventual downfall so tragic is that he doesn't recognize it as one. Even as the walls close in, he sees himself as the master of his fate. He believes he's still the one making the choices. But in reality, his pride is making them for him. In trying to control everything, Walter loses the only things that mattered. As his empire collapses and his family turns against him, Walter becomes a ghost haunting the ruins of his own making. The fortune he built, the very reason he claimed to enter the drug trade, no longer belongs to him. Skylar's left terrified, forced to survive with what little she can hide, while their son refuses to speak to him, calling him a monster. The DEA seizes everything tied to his name. Millions of dollars in drug money, once stacked like trophies of triumph, are now useless piles of paper. He can't spend them, can't protect them, can't even pass them on. The empire he built for control becomes a symbol of everything he's lost. He hides in a cold cabin in the woods, cut off from the world. There's no empire now, no allies, no family, only time and regret. His health is failing, his body breaking down as his mind replays the choices that brought him here. He has nothing left but pride, and even that begins to fade. The man who once dominated entire cartels is now heating a can of soup alone, paying strangers to deliver newspapers so he can watch his own name vanish from the headlines. Every ounce of power he once held dissolves into the same emptiness he tried to escape. When he finally returns home, it isn't for revenge or redemption, it's for closure. At that moment, he knows death is near. He finds a way to give what's left of his fortune to his family, laundering it through his former partners so that his son will one day receive it without knowing it's a hollow victory. But it's all he has. Then he visits Skylar one last time, and for the first time, he tells the truth. "I did it for me," he admits quietly. "I liked it. I was good at it." That single confession strips away every lie he's told since the beginning. In his final moments, Walter returns to the lab, the only place he ever truly felt alive. The hum of the machinery surrounds him as he takes one last look at the empire that cost him everything. As the police close in, he collapses beside the shining steel tanks, his blood mixing with the reflection of his blue creation. He dies alone, surrounded not by family, but by the one thing that defined his downfall, his pride. In the end, Breaking Bad is a story about how the desire to be seen can consume everything else. Walter White proved his genius, but lost his family, his freedom, and his soul in the process. The teacher who wanted to leave behind a legacy ended up leaving nothing that mattered. His fortune was seized, his family broken, and his name cursed. What remains is a warning that when pride becomes the reason for everything, it eventually leaves you with nothing at all. If you found this breakdown meaningful, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. In this channel, we look closely at how stories are built, how characters fall apart, and how great writing can turn simple moments into something unforgettable. Every episode we cover gives a clearer view of what makes film and television feel real, and why certain stories stay with us long after they end. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.